I want to bring in Democratic strategist Nomiki Konst, along with political strategies and insight CEO, also a Fox News political analyst, Angela McGlowan. Good to see you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. So explain the superdelegate story, why it is that Hillary is in the lead when you look at superdelegates now.
So superdelegates are a little bit different than normal delegates. Traditional delegates are a reflection of wins in these caucus and primary states. So it's very much like the Electoral College in a way, but for the party. Superdelegates are usually party leaders, major donors, huge backers of the National Democratic Committee. And Hillary Clinton, just like 2008, locked many of them down as far back as August. In fact, half of them is what she says. But they can turn the way that the wind the wind flows.
They can switch sides.
They can switch sides. But I don't think it's going to happen in this case. It did in 2008 with Obama because Obama was a different type of candidate. But Bernie Sanders is a little bit less for these people.
But I beg to differ because perception is reality. Even though she has those superdelegates, she's a flawed candidate. She seems weak. And she needs to win, not just in Nevada, but South Carolina as well. And the black vote is split there. And Hillary Clinton is saying she can get the African-American vote, but some African-Americans are switching over to Bernie.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Isn't this sort of a catch-22, too? Because everyone seems to be competing on, no, I'm more of the outsider. Wait, no, I am.
Yeah.
When you get the superdelegate vote, that goes the contrary to what the actual voting delegates are, it makes it more difficult for her to say, oh, no, I'm not part of...
And that's why they can switch sides. But if she loses South Carolina, I really believe that Biden might throw his hat in. Some people are saying it's too late. I don't think so.
Even with all of these superdelegates?
Yes, even with all these superdelegates. Look at what happened in 2008. Barack Obama won the nomination. Barack Obama won the presidency.
Doesn't this speak to why Bernie Sanders is doing so well in the polls? That this is the Clinton machine, that somehow the Clintons are going to capture the nomination without actually winning in a legitimate way. I know the rules only changed back in the 80s. It was to prevent these grassroots candidates from coming up out of nowhere, but that were, quote, not electable.
But doesn't it seem a little disingenuous that already she has all of these superdelegates? I mean, how did she rack up all of these superdelegates when we know Bernie Sanders is winning in terms of the political?
Because she had a coronation. Everybody thought that she was going to win the nomination. Clear
because
slide.
She's the best fundraiser in the Democratic Party's mind. She's the best fundraiser. She has the best name ID. Well, guess what? Even though she has the best name ID, it's not winning right now. And she's not raising as much money as Bernie Sanders is because she's had to cut back on financial industry events. She canceled 2 before New Hampshire because of the optics. You know, my whole question is, if we're going to do the superdelegate route, why even have a primary? Let's just go straight to the convention. Right. She blocked out Joe Biden. She blocked out several other candidates that could have run.
Not yet. And let me tell you this. The reason why the black vote is split, let's go back to 2008 when Bill Clinton said, in essence, that when Barack Obama won South Carolina, Jesse Jackson won it as well. And also when Ted Kennedy wanted to endorse Barack Obama, Clinton made a phone call and said, why are you even looking at this guy? You know, he could have been carrying our suitcases 2 years ago. People remembered that. Those are code words. And that's why the community is divided on her.
But big picture, does this mean that, I mean, where does she stand in terms of the nomination? Because again, if the more you dismiss the power of a Sanders, the more you poo-poo his super left-wing ideology, the more mojo he's got.
It empowers him. You know, my perception is that these superdelegates, because they're so institutional, they won't turn. Maybe some of them will, but I don't think they'll turn. I think somebody else will swoop in.
But if these are lawmakers, then the people actually elected
them. They're not all lawmakers. A lot of them are donors.
But also they are lawmakers, so those will look at when they come up for re-election. If they don't go with the people, and Dagan's right, the more you poo-poo Bernie Sanders, the more his popularity increases.
I mean, I'm a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. I love him. I think he's great for the party. I think, you know, the party's very different than it was in the 80s. In the 80s, you know, they had to run blue dogs because the country was more conservative, socially conservative. Now the party can get away with a little bit more of a liberal edge because there's this whole reaction to Wall Street.
And you made the comment earlier about fundraising. There are 3 components for a winning strategy. Name ID, which she has. Message, which she has. Also, fundraising.
Right.
But having said that, this is not working like it did. This is not a political season that we've seen before.
She doesn't have the right message.
Did you think that Donald Trump would actually be the front runner of the Republican Party? I sure didn't.
Well, the fact that we're having this conversation and the fact that Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are doing so well really speaks to the overall frustration that Americans seem to be feeling about, do they really have a say in their government? Because once you get into Washington, you don't get out. You stay there forever. And get rich doing it.
You say you love Bernie Sanders. I mean, have you thought about what socialism would look like if
he's not going to overthrow the government and turn it into a socialist state. I think that the
I think
goal,
he wants to.
Well, I think the goal with Bernie Sanders is he wants to start from an idealist perspective and come to the middle. The problem with our party is that we really don't have a backbone anymore. We've been so focused on fundraising and winning elections and picking candidates who can raise money to carry out those elections. We haven't found leaders who stand for
The problem with your
principles.
party is you have a flawed candidate. And I would
Well,
not
that's
be...
why I'm saying all around. We're talking about the DCCC.
And what gives you an indication that he's going to come to the middle?
The fact that he has more of a record working with the other side than any other Democrat in office, on the congressional side and the Senate side.
Because he's very clear, I'm a democratic socialist, so he's not... you know, hiding behind anything. He's saying exactly who he is. And so I'm just curious as to, because you said you love him.
I do. I think that, you know, I love what he stands for. I love that he represents the new generation of Democrats, and that's very much the future of the Democratic Party.
And when you say what he stands for, what is that?
Well, the fact that he understands that, you know, millennials are hurting the most, that they're paying out of pocket still for health care. They can't, you know, they're in debt from student loans. I mean, these are things...
They're hurting the most because
so you like the idea of universal health care. You like the idea of free college.
I love the idea of free public college, and I think, you know, there is a path to pay for it. He does have a plan, whereas Hillary Clinton doesn't have a plan. She's like, I'll sort of
Can I bring up something, though, that she's talking about, oh, if Bernie Sanders gets elected, he's not going to be as left-wing as he said. But you, on the right, you hear the same thing about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's not going to really ban Muslims from coming into the country. He's not really going to put a 45% tax on imported goods from China. He's not. So we are presented with candidates where we have to assume they're not going to do what they're promising to do on the campaign.
Are they lying now or are they lying later?
It's a bad relationship.
But the great thing is you have Congress and you have the White House that has to work together. So you can't have a Bernie Sanders overthrow the government. But I am saddened that we do have a front runner that does say that he wants to get rid of Muslims, that makes the statements that he makes, and people support him. It shows the anger in this country and the failure of Obama. And that's why people are supporting Donald Trump.
Or everyone is saying of their candidate, oh, I love my candidate, but it's going to be great because once we get married, he's going to change.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
Well, I don't think
Your husband is who he is before you marry him.
He said about President Obama, too. And he did everything he said he was going to do.
Yes, he didn't change.
You know what? You're right. It's any woman who's ever had a boyfriend you thought you could fix. We all know better.
You can't fix it. It's not turn out well.
You can't change this guy.
No.
And Bernie Sanders has been the same guy for a very long time. We do know that.
Exactly. Ladies, great conversation. Thanks so much. Nomiki, Konst, Angela McGlowan. Good to see you.